Hey everybody, welcome to episode 9 of the Penalty Box Podcast. Wednesday, December 11th, 2019. Almost the end of the decade, folks. Okay, so on this podcast, we are going to, first of all, you might notice I'm not wearing my headphones because, this is the third time I'm trying to do the podcast, and I don't know, it's throwing me off. Ever have one of those days where you just, I don't know. So hopefully we'll get through it on the third time. Third time's a charm, that's what they say. Okay, so in this episode of the Penalty Box, we're going to talk about Montreal's recent bounce back from their losing streak. What's caused that? And their playoff chances. Do they still have a chance to make the playoffs? They've dug themselves a deep hole, that's for sure. So let's look at that. I'm going to talk about Cole Caufield and think he'll be ready for the spring if they do make the playoffs. Do you think Cole Caufield will be ready? And I'm going to talk about that. I also feel there's a trade coming, but I've been feeling like that for a week or so, and nothing's happening. So let's talk about, do you think there's a trade coming? Or should Montreal be patient and play the kids and wait for them to develop instead of upsetting the apple cart, as they say? Bringing in an experienced guy maybe on a longer contract, and the kids come up, and then you got, although it's a good problem to have when you have too many players and you got to get rid of somebody, it's kind of a good problem to have. But should they go that far? Do they think they're going to go far if they make the playoffs? Do they think they're going to make the playoffs? Anyway, we'll talk about that. After that, news today, just before I started trying to film this, I found out that Montreal's placed Jesperi Kotkaniemi on the injured reserve list for his concussion. They've also called up Ryan Poehling and Christian Folin. Now, Folin, not a surprise. He was on a conditioning stint, so he needed to be called up. Poehling is not a surprise, but the fact that KK went on the IR so that they had an extra spot open, and they called up Poehling. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about should Montreal. I don't know if we need to talk about it, so I'm going to kind of decide. But I wanted to talk about, should Montreal be patient with KK or send him to Laval, because there's a lot of talk swirling around everywhere about whether Montreal should continue trying to get KK's game out of him, or send him to Laval, where he'll play a lot more, and he can continue to develop there for a little while before he comes back up. Also want to talk about the hit on KK. I haven't really had a chance because the last podcast was last Wednesday. I believe last Thursday they played Colorado Thursday, so I didn't get a chance to talk about it yet. And I've kind of been holding off for the podcast. So we'll talk about whether that was a slew foot. In my opinion, it was. And, that was kind of things there. Yeah, them kind of things. Also want to just go over there's a new disciplinary code for coaches and assistant coaches and managers and everybody involved with the team. And what does it mean going forward for those people, I guess, right? Mainly for coaches and management. Also, in that vein, Jim Montgomery was fired yesterday from Dallas Stars, and it's not because they were playing bad, because I believe his last 20 games, he had them at 16-4. He was coaching well and everything, so it was apparently a personal thing. Anyway, we'll talk about why was Jim Montgomery fired. I have a viewer question to answer. Just one viewer question. That's it. Follow the support I get, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so I've got the one viewer question to answer. I'll answer that after. So also to tell you guys, if you want me to answer more than one viewer question, you got to give me some viewer questions to answer. Leave them in the comment section down below. You can leave any kind of comments you want, any ideas you might have for me, anything like that in the comment section. But I'd really like to get some questions for next week. It would be really nice. And I think that's it. That's pretty much what we'll tackle here. So, first topic up for discussion today. Who am I discussing with? Oh, yeah, with you guys. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so Montreal just came off of this god-awful 8-game Well, it's a losing streak, but in the old days when there were ties, we called it a winless streak, and it was because they did make 2 forays into overtime, and so they got points out of it. But it basically is a losing streak. But then they've turned it around now. In their last 4 games, they've won 3 of those 4 games, and not only that, they played the Islanders, and last night the Penguins, who are winning teams, good records. Before that was the Rangers, before Pittsburgh. Now the Rangers have a better record than Montreal did. Not a top team, but a good team, and Montreal was looking for revenge from the last game. They beat us at home 6-5 after we were ahead. Once again, I saying we, it was Montreal, I don't play. After Montreal was ahead 4-0 at the beginning of the second period, and you'd think Montreal was going into that game looking for revenge, and they got it. So what caused the bounce back? We know for a fact that before the losing streak ended, Coach Julian implemented a new system. I don't think just for the defense, but for everybody. Cutting back on odd man rushes, cutting back on mistakes, cutting back on taking chances. And in the 3 games before the losing streak ended, you could see the results were starting to show. So that's a big cause. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason for the comeback is that he implemented a new system. The players are buying into it. So when I was saying, when everyone's calling for Julian's head, that I don't think so, because the players he hasn't lost the players, and that's obvious that he hasn't lost them, because if he had lost the room, they wouldn't have responded to the new system, right? They wouldn't have turned it around. It wouldn't have happened, and it has happened. So he hasn't lost the room, and they bought into this new system. And they've executed the new system. And even in the loss against Colorado, they played pretty good. If it wasn't for that first period, Caden Primo's first ever in an NHL game and in a Canadiens uniform, that you could even think that they might have won that game. So in the 4 games, 3 wins, 1 loss, they played like polar opposite of the previous 8. So that's what caused the bounce back, is literally Julian finally, I don't know it took so long, honestly. I don't know why it took him so long to go about 6 games into that losing streak before it's time to say, listen, there's a problem. We knew we had the problem to start with, kind of did. We're going to fix it now. But they did. They finally fixed it. And the players bought in. And the players executed. And they're playing really, really, really good hockey. I think something they've realized, and I guess they've realized it, I hope they've realized it, that they need to play 60 minutes. They cannot take a minute off in any games, because if they take any time off and not, like 5 minutes where they're not playing, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but if they take time off during a game and they don't play a full 60 minutes, that they're more than likely going to lose that game, because that's when the other team's going to jump on their defensive errors. And, the floodgates can open real quick. We've seen it happen, against the Rangers. Boom, 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 and it was, tied up in a matter of no time, less than a period, right? So, I think these things, plus Montreal's a talented team. Yeah, they're a bit small, but the one thing they don't lack, they might lack size a little bit, but they don't lack heart. They don't lack second effort. They don't lack energy. When they put it all together in a game and they play that way for 60 minutes, then good things are going to happen. So that's what caused it to bounce back. Now, can they still make the playoffs? Yeah, they can. There's enough time. They have to play, like I just said, 60 minutes a game. Don't take a minute off and just go, 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 go. If they can play like that the rest of the way, they can make the playoffs. Because I think also in the Atlantic Division, I don't think it's going to take 98 points to make the playoffs. Last year it was 98 points, I think, because we had 96 and we were 2 out, so 98 to make it in. And but it wasn't that way. There was one division, I think, in the Western Conference that the team got in with less than 96 points. So legitimately, you can figure 90 well, I've been saying 90 to 94 points should be able to get you in the Atlantic Division. So that's at least gives a little bit of hope, and I think they can manage it. It's a lot. But they have to play that way. They've dug themselves a huge hole, but in doing so, they're still in 4th spot in the division and literally only, I think, 2 points out of 2nd. So it's not that there's tons of games in hand everywhere. It's manageable. So yeah, I think they can do it. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, I guess, so I'm not going to be negative. But I do also believe, and we'll touch on this in a second, but I do also believe that there should be probably some help coming. They might need to reach out for a little bit of help on the defense. So now, if Montreal does make it, we'll move on to the next one. I saw, I guess, an article about Cole Caufield, and he just, again, had 2 goals in a game. I don't know, maybe I heard something about a hat trick. I don't know if I'm wrong on that. I should research a little bit more. But I don't try to for this. And one of the comments was from, I don't remember who it was someone I like. And he was saying how Caufield, you can see how he has gotten stronger on his skates. His bounce is better. Everything is just better about his game. He's looking like he is ready and will be ready at the end of the season for the Wisconsin Badgers to, if he wants, or if he's able to, make the jump to the NHL, that he will be ready, an NHL-ready player at the end of this season, this NCAA season. So now, at the beginning of the NCAA season, it looked like they were going to go to the playoffs, but I don't know. They're not, as a team, not doing great, and I have a feeling they might miss out on the, whatever they call the extra season in the college ranks, but they might not go anywhere there. If that's the case, he'll be ready to make the jump just before the season ends. And I think he wants to do it. He's talked like he wants to do it. He's definitely said flat out that he wants to do it. And I think he'll be able to. And if he has time to play a couple of games before the season ends, that would be really great. And he's here and he does well. Look at and we make the playoffs, what a boon this guy's shot's going to be. You know, even if, okay, he's a rookie and it's whatever, but he's going to score a few goals. You got to figure. Anyway, it'll be a big improvement to have that kind of a shot in the lineup. And I'm hoping it'll happen. And I think it could happen. And I think he will be ready. Next up is a trade coming. As I said, I kind of been feeling like for the last week or so there's a trade coming. And it doesn't happen. I was talking about Shane Gostisbehere for a long time. I don't think that's on the table. Was it on Twitter? Read again, a source on Twitter that is in the know and is a trusted source, and they said there's nothing even going on there with Gostisbehere. But then there's a really good, strong rumor that Bergevin has been scouted Eric Gustafsson from Chicago. And here's another guy that I did have on that video, the left-hand defenseman targets for Montreal. So I actually made the prediction that I think they're going to get a left-handed defense or left side defense. Whatever you want to say. That's the guy I'm predicting is going to be the guy. And still a week later, so it still hasn't happened. So I don't know, honestly. But I still feel that they should do it. I think that if you're going to really give yourself a legitimate shot to make the playoffs, minimally, if you can find somebody that has maybe a couple of years term, has some experience, has a track record, I would go after that and see if that can make a difference. Anyways, that's me. Now, the other side of that is, do they just continue doing what they're doing and going with, we got Leskinen playing, Fleury playing, you bring up the young guys, you got Suzuki, you got Paling just been called up, and you go with the youth movement and you let them get experience, and we know with what's in the cupboard and what should be coming out, Caufield and all that stuff. Do you develop a team for not to win this year, but to win in 2 years and 3 years down the road? We'll have an awesome team, I gotta tell you. And Yeah, I don't. I think we got to do a little bit of both. So I think we really should reach out for a little bit of help for this year. I really do. I think you've got to do something on the defense. I don't think they can play with this much intensity for another 50 games. I think you take away a big part of that chance of making the playoffs. I really do. Is it do or die to make the playoffs? I don't really feel that it is. In saying what I just said, I really don't think if they miss the playoffs that, for me, it's not going to be blow up the team and blah, blah, blah. I still think they're on the right track. But it kind of is do or die because that's what everybody says, right? Anyway, I don't feel that way, but I do think you need to do both because I think the kids need to play. Look how good Suzuki's. He's going to be so good. Look at Cale Fleury, and I didn't think Cale Fleury was going to make it this year, and look how good he's doing. And I think it's time to play some of these kids and give them some experience. It's going to pay dividends down the road. It really is. So I think that they should do that. They should try to find a defenseman that they can bring in that will fit the mold, that won't cost a lot, that they don't have to give up much for, and doesn't have a lot of term left on his contract. That's what I'm hoping they can find. And barring that they cannot do that, well, you've got the kids that you're developing, and I think that's great as well. So am I wishy-washy on it? I don't know. That's how I feel. Okay, next up. If KK comes back, should Montreal be patient with him or send him back to Laval? I don't know if I really want to get into that now because I don't know when is he going to come back. I guess that's so up in the air now. I was leaning towards the fact that maybe they should send him back to Laval. He was starting to look like he was really frustrated playing and everything. And then he got his game going back again. And I even thought he was starting to look like a real veteran out there, looking really like, not like a kid out there. Not tentative, making good decisions. And then he got hurt. And now it's up in the air whether he comes back in time to, I don't know when we don't know when he's going to. It's a concussion. How do you know when a guy's going to come back? So, I don't know if we need to answer that even now. I think now that he's hurt, when he does come back, I think that's going to be a very big decision. Since he was hurt and out, and he's missed a lot of time, and he's missed some of his development, it probably is going to be better to send him back down to rehab and condition in Laval under Joel Bouchard, and just get his head back before he comes back up to the NHL. So I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. So that begs the question for me, because I have it, and mostly because I have it numbered after what bad stuff. So you ever have just a bad day where you just can't get your thoughts out and everything? I'm kind of having that today, so bear with me, I hope. Anyway, it is what it is. That's what a podcast's all about. So was that a slew foot on KK? So I'd like to know, this is something you can leave a comment on. I'd like to know what you guys thought about that. Was that a slew foot on KK in your opinion? Because in my opinion, it was. It's not a typical classic slew foot where he literally took his skates out from under him. But after hitting him into the boards as hard as he did, which was an okay play, you can do that. That hit itself was fine. If he would have left it at that and skated away, and KK was still on his skates and he skated away as well. That's not what happened. What I saw, and I missed the original play because I was doing a live stream, and it happened while I was looking at my phone where I'm streaming from. So I had to watch it on replay, and by the time I got to see it, I had heard about his knee coming up to cause the slew foot. So I watching it, and it's obvious that his knee comes up, and he slew foots him. He knocks his feet out from under him, and that's classic definition of what a slew foot is. And at the same time, he pinwheels him around with his upper body, his arm. He swings him the opposite direction of the feet going out. That's why KK landed on his head. So it was a slew foot, a dirty play. There was no call. There was no supplementary discipline on it. And I just don't get, how do these guys look at that and didn't see what I saw on it. I'd like to know what you guys thought of that. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought. I thought it was a really dirty hit. Not the original hit, but the dirty part was the slew foot, obviously. But if he would have left it at the hit, would have been fine. And now KK's out. And who knows when he's coming back. And his development is shot. By the way, I just looked at my notes. Nolan, one of my subscribers, Nolan, that's your video there. Sorry, I don't know if I did a great job, but I wanted to talk about it in the podcast and do that part of it. That was my idea today. So sorry, but I don't know if I did a good job. You ever have one of those days where you can't get your, I don't know how many times I got to say it, but that's what's happening today. Okay, we're going to just get away from this guy. We're getting away from that. KK's on the IR. He's going to be rehabbing. I wish him the best, quickest recovery, definitely, but we're going to get away from that right now. Push it to the side. So the Gary Bettman announces the new disciplinary code for the coaches and management and, trainers and all that kind of stuff. So you're not allowed, you shouldn't be allowed to obviously punch and kick and use racial slurs against players. I mean, that just makes sense to me, right? So he's announced this disciplinary code. They're going to have to take off-season training. What do they call that? What's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, this training so that, you learn how not to treat people badly. And so what does it mean going forward for these coaches? I'm sure there's plenty of coaches out there right now that have been nasty. It's kind of the way the culture has been, right? That coaches and management, they tell you what to do. Look, if you go back 50 years, 50 years, I'm 56. 50 years and more, the players had no say. They didn't even have say how much they got paid. They were told how much they're getting. We're offering you this, take it or leave it. So they didn't make a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of say in conditions and this and that. So I don't know where I was going with that. Oh my God, there's a brain fart. Yeah, so you're not allowed to treat players like that, even though the culture was you were allowed to. So I'm just wondering what happened. Are these guys biting their nails, waiting for the next thing to come out, and then he's going to lose his job? I think we're going to see a little bit of that. We're going to see some guys that we thought were really good guys, and we're going to find out maybe they weren't so good behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff. So there's a big, all these movements, taking people out. Basically what it seems like, right? So I think we're going to see some coaches get fired. We're going to see some assistant coaches get fired. We're going to see some things happen. I think it's a good thing. I think, personally, I don't see why people need to be reminded that you can't mistreat other people, but it seems that we need that, and I think this is a good thing. Depends on how the NHL implements it. If they implement it the way they implement the player safety stuff, it's not going to be a good thing. Not going to be a good thing. I don't know what they think with player safety, but I don't know what they're doing. It's not player safety, that's for sure. They're not worried about the player so much as the guy that's causing the problem, not the victims. I mean, just look at that slew foot. Nothing happened to the guy. KK's got this concussion. Something happened to him. I don't know how he spun around like that. Maybe the wind was blowing really strong in the arena, so when he pushed him up against the board, the wind caught KK and spun. It must have been what happened. Okay, so what happened to Jim Montgomery? Jim Montgomery was fired by Dallas yesterday, and apparently it has nothing to do with abuse. He didn't abuse anybody. That's the first stuff that came out, and then Bettman came out and said it was a personal issue. And then I heard there's rumors that maybe he gambled and he bet on his team, kind of like Pete Rose did so many years ago. So I don't know, but apparently it's not an abusive issue. I've read all kinds of things, from it is to it isn't, but from places that I trust, it wasn't an issue of abuse. He didn't use racial slurs. He didn't punch or kick anybody. I mean, he may have, but this apparent issue is not about that. And so it's either a personal issue like drugs or alcohol, and even then, I think if it was drugs or alcohol, they'd offer him help without firing him. And I heard also they had no choice but to fire him. It was something that was egregious enough that they had no choice but to fire him. Only I can think of is gambling, and I heard it a couple places that it might be gambling. So if you're wondering what happened, that's the best I can find out, is that might be what he got fired for. I'm not saying it is. I don't know any more than what rumors I've heard. Okay, so this was a struggle podcast. You know, I really enjoy doing the podcast, and every now and then, you know, I do a lot of videos. I've got like almost 500 videos, and you know, I do 3 or 4 that I really like, and then the next one and it comes out, and I just this is one of those podcasts. I don't know. I'm glad if you're still watching that you stuck it out. So I'll just go to the viewer question, and then we're gonna call it. So now I can see everybody. Oh, it's over now. We'll go away. So if you're staying and you're watching this viewer question, it's from Ghislain Laframboise. So Ghislain asks me, and I think I've answered this before, but I'll answer it again. Who will be our first line? Excuse me. Who will be our first line center in the near future? And I guess the difference here is he's asking not in the next year or two, but in 5 years down the road. And he gives me options. Phil Deneau, Max Domi, Nick Suzuki, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Ryan Poehling, or someone else. Because obviously 5 years down the road, there's other prospects that are going to come up, and there's trades that could happen, and there's all kinds of things. So as far as trades, you can't predict that in 5 years. But from who's here and who's on the team, and I've said this now probably the 3rd or 4th time I'm actually answering this question in various places, and not saying just here, but I'm going to pick Nick Suzuki, because Nick Suzuki for me is the clear-cut number 1 center of the young guys. So we're talking KK, Poehling. Deneau's a little bit older, and I mean, he's not a clear-cut number 1. But to me, Nick Suzuki is a clear-cut number 1 center, the guy with the most talent maybe at center, and the guy you're going to play against your other... I don't know how they worked it out, but to me, he's your clear-cut, most talented center with the highest ceiling. I really do believe this guy's got a ceiling. His ceiling to me could be as high as 100 points, but I see him more along the lines of a point-a-game player. So I definitely can see him being 75 to 85 point guy on like a regular basis, you know. I mean, just look at the stuff he's doing in his rookie season. So, yeah, so that's what I'm going to say. Like I said, as far as someone else, it's hard to figure that out. As far as the other guys that are coming up, I don't think anybody else is close enough at center that we can clearly say in 5 years. But I would have to think Nick Suzuki is going to be here still in 5 years, KK and Poehling. I hope all 3 of them will still be here in 5 years. So, yeah, it's Nick Suzuki for me. Okay, guys, so I think I'm going to call it a video. Okay, thanks. If you like the podcast, don't know how you will. No, I'm sure some of you guys liked it. I hope you did. It was a bit of a chore to get it out there. Give a thumbs up and subscribe, ring the notifications bell if you dare. And that'll get you all my videos and podcasts and all that stuff for your daily fix of Blue Blanc Rouge. And I think that's it. I'll be doing next week's podcast. Hopefully, I like when some big topics come up and I can talk about them. And nothing much this week. So topics of the day. That'll be out next Wednesday. And yeah, I'll be doing the tonight. I don't know when you're watching this, but yeah, I live stream the first period of every game, except if I'm not feeling well, which has happened once or twice so far. That's it. So basically, first period of every game, I'm live streaming. So whenever you're watching this video, whatever the next game is, I'm probably live streaming the first period of that game. So look for me there. Hope to see you there. I'm going to call it a video here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate it. And for putting up with this kind of, I don't know what to call this, but that's it. Go Habs, go. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Bye, y'all.